Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Sportslook, the sports television program for the high plains of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and since we had so much fun last week doing spring sports, we decided to do two different spring sports this week. So we've got Tamia Smith from Greyhound Track and Field. We'll have Albert Flynn, the head coach of Greyhound Rodeo. I'll finish up with an overtime, but as always, I'll start out with an Eastern recap. To quote the title of a movie that won Jeremy Irons an Academy Award, it was a reversal of fortune for the Greyhound baseball and softball teams last weekend. 2 weekends ago, the Greyhound baseball team took 3 out of 4 from visiting St. Mary's University. Last weekend, the Greyhounds lost 3 out of 4 against Lubbock Christian. Of course, Lubbock Christian, the number 23 team in the nation, so no disgrace there. For Greyhound softball, 2 weekends ago, they lost 2 games to Oklahoma Christian and 2 games to Cameron. This past weekend, they swept Texas Women's and split with Midwestern State. Well, that has been your Eastern recap, so we'll clear the set and we'll bring in our first guest, Tamia Smith, right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and a pleasure and a privilege to bring to the set one of the standout track and field athletes at Eastern New Mexico University, Tamia Smith. And Tamia, welcome to Sportslook.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, Tamia, you are associated with track and field. If they didn't believe me, you've got the track and field T-shirt you're representing here. What was the process that got you here to Eastern to compete in track and field?
Okay, so originally I'm from Arlington, Texas. And I kind of got just this random email about coming to see the campus. I really didn't know Eastern was a school because they don't really talk about New Mexico schools in Texas. So I got in and asked my coach there, and he actually knew the head coach here at the time. So he was like, no, go check it out, go see how it is. So I came up. It was when Addie was our coach at the time. And I came, I got interested in the school. Kind of sat down with the head coach, talked about scholarship-wise, and then I guess the rest is just history. Like, I just decided to go here. Off my other options, they were allowing me more scholarship money here and more playing time, so I chose the cheaper school, but where I can also gain more experience at.
A win-win situation.
Yeah.
Well, was track and field always your specialty, or did you just become really good at it as you got a little older?
I kind of got forced into track. First, when I was a kid, I was a cheerleader. And then I gradually kind of got stronger. So I joined powerlifting. And powerlifting was my main sport in high school. And then they were like, you know, you should try throwing because you're already strong. You might as well go out there and do it. And then I kind of just fell in love with it. Like, I got better at it. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting better. I can stick to it. And then I actually got really good. And I actually started to love the sport more.
And which was the easiest of your events to master, and which one took you the longest to become really good at?
Well, shot put is definitely the easier one that came natural and is my best event now currently. I believe in high school it was disc, but in college it took me a while to get better at hammer throw because we don't have that in Texas. So, and then I don't do jab. Jab's not for me. So really, hammer is what took me the longest to get.
Well, obviously, and for people that are familiar with track and field, this is going to be kind of a comment on my part. But for people that don't really know track and field, a certain amount of what you do requires good technique. Yeah. A certain amount requires good form. Some of it requires strength. But a lot of it is mental because there's a ring and you got to stay in the ring. And if you don't, it's a stretch. So what is the balance for you? Is it an equal kind of 25%, or is there one thing that you're really, really strong in?
Really, I'm more so my mental. I've gotten really stronger with that. I had to trust myself to fall in the ring because most people, when they start throwing, they get so scared of the toe board being there that they don't want to use all the power that they have because they feel like they're going to fall or they're going to like not get a mark. So that's really my best strength, is that I force myself to be okay with falling, to be okay with attacking that toe board and I mess up my ankle, I'm okay. Like, you're good. Get back up, do it again. So it's kind of that's like most throwers, but for me, for sure.
For a lot of college students, there is a period of homesickness, and some kids just never overcome that, and they're going to leave the school that they're at. But for other kids, there's that turning point, that moment of time where it's like, no, I can make it here. And what was your moment of truth that has kept you here at Eastern?
Honestly, getting more involved in the campus. In high school, I was really just doing sports. And I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna stick to sports, go home. But I got to college and I love my sport, but I also wanted to get involved in other organizations. For example, student government. Right now, I'm the vice president, and that's really keeping me here. It's opening opportunities because I love track, and track is my thing. I just want to not go to practice and then go home. I want to get involved, meet new people, experience college, and I kind of like it. I was used to being in a big city, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try a smaller town because I want to learn. Like, can I do both? Or like, when I'm done with college, where do I want to go? To a small town, or do I want to go to a big city? So that's kind of what's keeping me here.
And another organization which had a really cool banquet Monday of this week, the SAAC. And how did you get involved with that?
The head coach, Jeff Cavalinas, he came to me and said, hey, you want to be a SAC rep? And I was like, oh, what's SAC, you know? And because I've never heard of it. And I got involved, and it's all the captains basically on the team. And we all meet together and we talk about if things need to be improved in the athletic department, if what do we need to make sure that the athletes are okay. And then we thought like, hey, we never really had like an athletic banquet. We should do that. We should bring that to this year and get the athletes motivated. Like some of the awards, like the Team Cup Award, that's going to a different team every year, depending on who shows the more reputation on campus. So I really enjoyed that we did the gala and that we're trying to keep it going for the next few years.
And we will congratulate Greyhound softball. They were the first recipients.
Yes, they were.
Well, to me, obviously, you've had great individual success at Eastern New Mexico University. What meet really stands out in your mind? If you had to look back and say there was one meet in particular you were, and it may not even be one that you necessarily had the best finish, but you were really proud of your effort going up against the competition. What meet sticks out in your mind?
I would say last year's conference meet. It really stuck out to me because yes, I got my best shot and I PR'd. And it was a good experience. I finally felt like smooth through the ring, but also I felt like I wasn't afraid anymore. Our school is like the only New Mexico school in our conference. And it's really tough going against the Texas schools because they're just like beasts out there. And I actually felt relaxed for once. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't nervous. And I went out there and I competed. And my coach was even impressed because he was like, I've never seen you this calm. I've never seen you this smooth in the ring. It's like something clicked that day. And I was like, okay, I could stay in this. I can do this.
So does Jeff coach every aspect of track and field, or does he have an assistant coach that works with the weight?
Yes. Coach K is not the throwing coach. He's our head coach. The throwing coach, his name is Michael Prokop. And he just came on officially this year as our coach, and he's great. He's helped me a lot with my technique. I've went from throwing 35 feet to now throwing 43 feet. So it was a big improvement.
And I was smiling as you were saying that because a legendary coach here on the High Plains. He's had great success on the high school level. I'm glad he's associated with college.
Yes.
And so what is your working relationship with Jeff, with the head coach?
Mainly just to make sure everything's getting smooth, ready for the meets. He's not technically like my training coach, but he makes sure that I'm taken care of. He talks to me about practice times if Coach Pro can't be there. Just making sure everything goes smoothly. He's helped me a lot with being homesick. He knows that it was a big step for me to leave a big city like Arlington to come to Portales. So he's kind of been that father figure to me. Yeah.
And I'm curious, in the Lone Star Conference, have you competed against anybody that you competed against in high school, or is this pretty much of a new group of people you're competing against?
No, I have a friend. Her name is Indy. She goes to Texas Commerce, and we were actually on the same high school team together. We were teammates, and now we're competing against each other. So it's kind of like we've had a rival since high school, and now we're in college, and we're like, all right, like we're gonna have this rival again, but now we're at different schools. We're not at the same school.
That's totally cool. Well, to me, you obviously are an exceptionally good athlete, but you're a student athlete, and let's talk about the academic side of it. What are you majoring in?
I am a criminal justice major with a minor in psychology.
And who is your advisor?
Her name is Chelsea Starr.
She is my boss. She's the chair of the department that I belong to, so got to say nice things about her. And at what point in your life did you decide that you wanted to go into CJ?
I can say my junior year of high school, I joined a Explorer Post team. It's basically like a team to train you on becoming an officer in law enforcement. And that just like opened my eyes. I see the change that needs to be made in the world. And I felt like me going this route, I can make that change.
I'm smiling again because I'm actually on the district council for Explorers here in this part of New Mexico. So I'm glad to hear that the program is equally good over in the state of Texas. Yeah. So what do you hope to do in criminal justice?
Hopefully my end goal is to be a behavioral analysis in the FBI. I really want to go that, but I do need to gain experience. So I want to start off in law enforcement, or if I can get into FBI, because it's a long process, I can start off as a field agent there.
And let's ask you one more question about academics before we go back to athletics to round things up here. What course really has been the most valuable of all the courses that you've taken here? What course are you really saying right now is the course that really did, and doesn't even have to be a CJ course, but what course really has opened your eyes the most on the college level?
I want to say like my homicide classes. They are opening my eyes because to be a behavior analysis, you have to be a law enforcement agent, but you also have to be a detective at the same time. I feel like the homicide courses that I've been taking, they're opening my eyes on what to do, what not to do. I'm watching documentaries about these detectives, and it's really cool and interesting to learn.
Well, I was kind of hoping you were going to say my history course that you took. But
I loved your class, Doc. I did.
But I'll defer to homicide class. That'd be even better. Well, let's switch back to athletics. And what is left for you during the regular season and hopefully in the postseason?
The rest of the season, we're out now in outdoor season. We have a few meets left, and then the conference meets coming up on the weekend of May 6th. And so I'm very excited about that. And then we're going to turn around, go to off season and train for indoor. So I'm ready to get back to indoor because I did good, but I wasn't necessarily happy with myself in indoor. So I kind of want to go back and redeem it to myself.
And where is the conference meet this year?
It is in Texas A&M at Kingsville.
Okay, so a nice long jaunt, a good bonding experience for you and your teammates.
Bus ride.
Well, to me, it's been a pleasure to watch your career. You've gotten better every year, and I'm proud of you as an athlete, proud of you as a student, and proud of you for getting involved in the campus.
Oh.
Well, that is going to wrap up the first interview segment. So what we'll do is we'll clear the set and we'll bring in Albert Flynn, the head coach of Greyhound Rodeo, right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and we bring back to the set of Sportslook one of my favorite people at Eastern New Mexico University, the head coach of Greyhound Rodeo, Albert Flynn. And Coach, welcome back to Sportslook.
Thank you, Doc. Appreciate it.
Well, Coach, since the last time we had you on, there have been rodeos that have taken place, and how have things gone for the Greyhound men and women so far during the spring?
Well, we wish they'd done better. Madeline, the only one I think has a chance to get to Casper, but these last two rodeos, she needs to win the goat tie at both of them to get there.
So she needs to win, not just place or show.
Yeah, and of course, last one we went to Trent Wood, him and his partner, they won the first round of the team open and ended up winning fourth in average. So he's coming around as a freshman, doing good.
So when you look at a kid like Trent in high school and you project what you think they're capable of doing, is he ahead of where you thought he would be in his college career?
For the size he is, he's just light. Cattle get big. Hard for him to get by them, to get him on the ground to be quick enough to win something. He could be 10, 11, or 12 when he needs to be 9, but in the team rope and he ropes good. If a partner catches 2 feet, well, they're in good shape. So, yeah, he's doing good for a freshman. He started out placing at our rodeo, made the short round at Sul Ross, and then he's won around here at this last one. And of course, they've got to draw the right kind of cattle to make everything work. But this boy rides his horse good, does a good job.
And how did Trent choose his partner?
I think they'd roped. Hayden Powell was here from Portales, and they'd roped some in high school and stuff. So they've known each other for quite a while.
And let's talk about the other events. Obviously, Trent has had the most success, but is there another male rodeo performer that's at least had one shining moment?
Boy, it's a tough question. Not at the rodeos. Have a steer wrestler that's, they take the top 10 back, and he was 11th. And then I've got a boy that is a healer, and his header hasn't turned many steers for him. And so it makes it tough for the back end of the steer to get anything done if the headers can't turn one for him. And they're the 2 bright spots that we look forward to in the next year.
And that's one of the things I really like about rodeos, because there are individual events, but there are also events where you're relying on somebody else, and so it teaches you teamwork.
Yeah, and the steer wrestling's the same, because they have to have a hazer, and that hazer has to be there in the right time, in the right place for him to catch that steer and shape him up. So, yeah, and then we look for things to be a lot brighter next year.
And on the women's side, we obviously have talked a little bit about Madeline. What has been the high point of her spring season so far?
Well, she won the goat tying at Odessa, and then Caitlin was second at Odessa. I think that's the first time Caitlin's ever made the short round and actually won something. So that's a kind of a bright spot for us. She has a couple of more years of eligibility. She's just getting stronger.
And what is Madeline's forte? Why is she as good as she is in that particular event?
She's just an athlete and doesn't fear the fact that she has to get off of a running horse and has the balance to stay on her feet, has quick hands, and combination of all of that is what it takes to be a goat tire. You just cannot fear the fact that you're going to fall down. It happens, but you just have to have the confidence to go and do it. She does it. She's riding a really nice horse, belongs to a friend of hers. And that's what's nice part about rodeo. These girls are riding each other's horses. And she has a nice breakaway horse. Girl that owns the goat tying horse is riding her breakaway horse. So it's just, horse makes a lot of difference.
And it's funny, you were talking about the fact that Madeline doesn't have a fear of falling. And our first guest tonight was Tamia Smith from track and field. And especially in the discus, where you have to spin to get the maximum torque to release, she said the biggest adjustment she had to make was learning how to get over her fear of falling.
Yeah. And those girls that come out of high school that have fallen a time or two and not really going very fast, and they have to step it up, they just have a difficult time forcing that horse to run faster. and it takes them a while to adjust to it. And some of them do and some of them won't.
Let's talk a little bit about the process that gets Madeline Shower or Trent Wood to Eastern New Mexico University. I would presume that mostly it involves you making a contact with a rodeo performer. Do you ever have, just out of the blue, somebody that really wasn't on your radar contact you and say, hey, I'd like you to give me a look?
Every now and then we do. And we take everybody. Matter of fact, I had a girl today that I interviewed that's going to be here in the fall. She's from Wyoming originally. Their folks moved to Tucumcari, and she's a freshman here now, but wanted to rodeo, and I visited with her. And she has nice barrel horses. So we look forward to her being on the team next year and helping us. And so, you get those phone calls, and we've had some girls. We had Zoe Sharp come from Kansas, and she wanted to come to a school that had a great science department and had a rodeo team. And Eastern had both, and she showed up and came to school and was a great asset to us, and stayed, got her master's degree, and then went home.
Coach, I would imagine that for a lot of young men and young women, you can probably judge their character within the first couple of minutes of a conversation with them.
Yeah, pretty much. I try to stay away from kids that are, what you would say, more interested in themselves than anything else. They're what I call horn blowers, and they'll tell you everything there is about themselves instead of asking questions. And I'm kind of a laid back individual, and I like them kids that are kind of laid back, that are excellent students, and we let everything else take its place.
Well, speaking of that, earlier this week, you and I were at a banquet that was held by the Student Athletic Committee, and I was really impressed. We were sitting at the same table, and just the poise of the young ladies that came it says volumes about the kids that you recruit.
Yeah. They, and of course, many years ago, I started asking them about their ACT score before I asked them anything else. With the pandemic and everything, and they quit taking ACT scores, I have to ask a different question. But they were surprised that that's the first thing I wanted to know. And if I got a girl that tells me she has 26, 28, 30 ACT tests, she can come regardless how good she can rodeo, because I know that part will come together. And if you recruit students, then you know that they're the kind that are force themselves to do better.
Looking at it, is there a particular major? I know that last week we just happened to run into each other at the Greyhound Arena, and you had a young lady that was interested in coming to school, and I asked her what her potential major would be, and she said ag. Is ag like the big major for rodeo, or is it pretty much spread across the field?
Pretty much spread apart. I mean, we've had them in communications. We have quite a few number of them in pre-med. We get a few in ag, some in the business department, psychology. Some of them are education majors, but the majority of them are pre-med students, biology majors. And, that's a challenge to be in those kind of classes, dedicate themselves to practice and rodeo and keep up their work. And, Madeline's an environmental specialist and straight A student, and you just can't ask for them to be much better.
I remember we actually had her on Sportslook last year, and finding out that she was really concerned about the environment and wanted to do something to help out. That's all you need to know about a kid like that.
Yeah, right. And so we get a variety of majors, interests. we don't seem to have many interested in PE classes, or if they're looking for physical training, then our program's not quite as broad as they're looking for. And we try to send them to the biology department, get their pre-meds taken care of, and then they can go on to PT school somewhere, get their master's.
Well, Coach, you mentioned the fact that you have 2 rodeos left during the regular part of the season. Madeline has a chance, maybe not the best chance, but she's got a chance. And I wish her the very best of luck, because quality young lady, and it'd be great to have at least one Eastern rodeo competitor.
It sure would. Yep. Yeah, she's great. She had an opportunity, and they didn't like the way she tied her goat, excuse me, at one of them, and they flagged her out, and that's what killed her, because she's going to win that round and come back to the short round. And the last one, she was 7-6. She had to be 7-4 to make it back to the short round. So, but things have a way of taking care of people when they work hard.
I couldn't agree more. Well, Coach, thanks so much for being our guest.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap up the interview segment of Sportslook. So what we'll do is we'll clear the set, and I'll finish up with an overtime right now. Back during the 1960s, there was a television program called Get Smart, and Agent Maxwell Smart had a tag phrase. He used to say, "Missed it by that much." Well, we missed it by that much with Sportslook, because today is April 14th. If we were broadcasting tomorrow, April 15th, we would be broadcasting on the 75th anniversary of the day that Jackie Robinson played his first game as a Major League Baseball player. So even though we missed it by that much, it's still a pretty cool event, and we'll still send a shout out to the great Jackie Robinson. Well, that will finish up in overtime, and that will wrap up an episode of Sportslook. I'd like to thank my guests, Tamia Smith from Greyhound Track and Field, Albert Flynn from Greyhound Rodeo. I'd like to thank my floor crew, Mr. Aiden, once again, my floor director. So for those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.